The silver spacecraft docked with a soft hum, its sleek shape reflecting the distant blue glow of Earth. Inside, Gia stood alone before the airlock, smoothing her formal diplomatic uniform. Her skin shimmered with subtle purple undertones that marked her as Niran, a species known across the galaxy for their advanced technology and strict social codes. "Final approach complete," announced the ship's computer. "Human space station Unity now secure. Atmospheric levels normal." Gia took a deep breath. This was her first assignment as lead diplomat for the Niran Confederacy. Failure wasn't an option, especially when relations with humans remained so fragile. The airlock hissed open, and Gia stepped into the brightly lit reception area. A human male in a crisp blue uniform was waiting. He stood straight, hands clasped behind his back. "Ambassador Gia, welcome to Unity Station. I'm Commander Minho, your liaison during your stay." His voice was deeper than Gia had expected, with a warmth that Niran officials rarely displayed. Gia bowed slightly, keeping the proper distance. "Thank you for your welcome, Commander. I look forward to productive talks." Minho smiled, lines crinkling around his eyes. "Please follow me. I'll show you to your quarters." As they walked through the curved corridors of the station, Gia studied Minho from the corner of her eye. His movements were fluid and confident. Unlike the stiff images of humans in Niran educational materials, he seemed relaxed and natural. "Your first time meeting humans?" Minho asked, breaking the silence. "Is it that obvious?" Gia replied, embarrassed. "You haven't blinked in about 2 minutes." He chuckled. "Most Nirans I've met tend to stare when they're processing new information." Gia felt heat rise to her face. "I apologize. It's considered rude in my culture too." "No apology needed," Minho interrupted gently. "Cultural differences are why we're here, right? To understand each other better." They stopped at a doorway marked with Niran symbols. Minho pressed his palm to the scanner, and the door slid open. "Your quarters. We tried to make them comfortable for Niran preferences. Higher gravity, drier air." "Thank you," Gia said, genuinely touched by the consideration. The Niran Council had warned her that humans were selfish beings who rarely considered others' needs. "The welcome reception begins in 3 hours. I'll return to escort you," Minho said. As he turned to leave, his hand accidentally brushed against Jia's arm. Electric. That was the only word for the sensation that shot through Jia's body at the contact. Her skin glowed briefly purple where he had touched her, an involuntary Niran response to emotional stimuli. Minho's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, did I hurt you?" "No," Jia said quickly, stepping back. "It's just, Nirans are sensitive to physical contact." "I'll be more careful," he promised, looking concerned. After he left, Jia paced her quarters, troubled by her reaction. Physical contact between Nirans and humans was strictly forbidden by Niran law. The official reason was biological incompatibility, but the rule was reinforced by centuries of cultural separation. 3 hours later, Minho returned as promised. The reception hall was filled with diplomats from a dozen worlds. Jia noticed how humans touched casually, handshakes, pats on shoulders, even embraces among friends. "Your people are very physical," she commented to Minho. "Touch is important to humans," he explained. "It helps us connect. Don't Nirans touch each other?" "Only family members and life partners," Jia said. "And never with other species. Especially not humans." Minho raised an eyebrow. "Why especially not humans?" Before Jia could answer, a tall Niran male approached them. Senior Ambassador Hoon, her direct superior, looked at Minho with cold eyes. "Ambassador Jia, I see you've met your human handler," Hoon said in Niran language. "Remember your training. Humans cannot be trusted with our hearts or our secrets." "Commander Minho is a respected diplomat," Jia replied carefully in the same tongue. Hoon switched to standard language. "Commander, I must borrow my colleague for important matters." As Hoon led her away, Jia looked back at Minho. He smiled at her, a gesture of unexpected warmth that made her heart beat faster. Later that night, Jia accessed the restricted Niren database from her quarters. There must be a reason for the strict laws against human contact. The official record spoke of biological hazards and cultural contamination, but provided no specific evidence. A soft chime indicated a message on her personal communicator. It was from Minho. Tomorrow's tour of the agricultural section has been moved to 900 hours. Sleep well, Ambassador. Such a simple message shouldn't make her feel this way. Jia closed her eyes, remembering the brief touch of his hand, the warmth of his smile. Everything she'd been taught about humans contradicted what she was experiencing. The truth was becoming clear. The Niren prohibition against human contact wasn't about protection. It was about control. And for the first time in her life, Jia found herself questioning the wisdom of her people's most sacred laws. She touched her arm where Minho's hand had brushed it, the memory still vivid. Whatever came next, Jia knew this diplomatic mission had already changed her forever. The Unity Station's observation deck offered the best view of Earth, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. Jia stood alone, watching the planet rotate slowly below. The trade talks had been going for a week now, with little progress. The Niren delegation demanded exclusive mining rights to Saturn's moons. The humans pushed for shared access. Neither side would budge. Beautiful, isn't it? Minho's voice came from behind her. Jia turned, trying to ignore the small flutter in her chest. Commander Minho, I didn't hear you approach. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. He moved beside her, careful to maintain proper distance. I come here when talks get frustrating. It helps to remember what we're fighting for. And what is that? Jia asked, genuinely curious. A future where our people work together instead of against each other. He glanced at her. Do you think that's possible? Before Jia could answer, the station alarm blared. Red emergency lights flashed along the corridors. Warning: oxygen recycling system failure in Section 12. All personnel evacuate immediately, announced the computer. That's the diplomatic quarters. Jia gasped. Minho was already moving. Come on. They raced through the corridors. The diplomatic section was filling with smoke. Several elderly delegates stumbled in the hallway, coughing and disoriented. Help me get them out, Minho shouted over the alarms. Jia didn't hesitate. She grabbed a confused Niren elder, supporting his weight as they moved toward safety. Minho carried a human woman whose breathing seemed labored. Together, they guided the group to the emergency shelter. Medical staff rushed to help the affected delegates. Jia watched as Minho organized the evacuation, calmly giving orders and providing comfort to those in distress. You're going back in, aren't you? She asked as he headed toward the door. There might be others trapped. His expression was determined. Then I'm coming with you. Side by side, they searched the smoke-filled quarters. They found a young human aide hiding in a closet, too frightened to move. As they helped him out, the ceiling panel above them groaned. Look out! Minho pushed Jia aside as the panel crashed down. They tumbled to the floor together, Minho's body shielding hers. The physical contact was electric, more intense than before. Jia's skin glowed brightly where they touched, her body responding in ways she couldn't control. Are you hurt? Minho asked, quickly helping her up. No, Jia said, breathless more from his touch than the falling debris. Thank you. Hours later, with the emergency contained and all delegates safe, Jia sat in the temporary quarters assigned to her. Her mind kept returning to that moment of contact with Minho. How right it had felt despite everything she'd been taught. A message appeared on her screen. Maintenance reports sabotage, not system failure. Security meeting in 10 minutes. The security office was crowded with station officials and diplomatic representatives. Ambassador Hoon glared at Jia when she entered with Minho. The evidence is clear, said the station's security chief. Someone deliberately damaged the oxygen recyclers. Who would do such a thing? Asked a human diplomat. Perhaps those who don't want these talks to succeed, Minho suggested. Hoon's voice cut through the room. Are you implying Niren involvement, Commander? I'm not accusing anyone, Minho replied calmly. But we need to work together to find the truth. After the meeting, Jia found herself alone with Minho in the corridor. Do you think someone really wants to stop the treaty? She asked quietly. Some people fear change, Minho said. On both sides. Jia thought of Ambassador Hoon's warnings about humans, the strange laws forbidding contact. My people have many fears about yours. And yet here you are, working with me despite those fears. Minho smiled. That takes courage. I'm beginning to think our fears are based on lies, Jia admitted. Everything I see contradicts what I was taught about humans. Like what? That you're selfish, violent, incapable of deep emotion. Jia hesitated. And dangerous to touch. Minho's expression grew serious. Is that why Nirens avoid contact with humans? You think we're dangerous. The council claims there's a biological reason. But today when you saved me, she couldn't finish the sentence. I felt it too, Minho said softly. Whatever it was. A door opened nearby. Ambassador Hoon emerged, his eyes narrowing at their closeness. Ambassador Jia. A word, please. His tone left no room for refusal. In a private room, Hoon confronted her. You're growing too close to the human. Commander Minho has been helpful during the crisis, Jia defended. Don't be naive. Hoon's voice hardened. The contact prohibition exists for good reason. Humans and Nirens once tried to coexist more intimately. The results were disastrous. What do you mean? That information is classified. But know this, if you continue this dangerous proximity, I will have you removed from the delegation and reported to the council. Later, alone in her quarters, Jia received another message from Minho. Need to show you something important. Meet me in the archive room at midnight. Jia knew she should ignore it. Her career, her future, everything depended on following the rules. But the memory of Minho's touch, the questions growing in her mind, the strange lies she'd begun to uncover, all pulled her toward a forbidden truth. At exactly midnight, Jia made her decision and left her quarters. Whatever the consequences, she needed answers more than safety now. The archive room was dimly lit, rows of data servers humming quietly. Jia glanced over her shoulder before entering the access code Minho had sent her. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Minho was already inside, his face illuminated by the blue glow of a computer screen. He looked up when she entered, relief washing over his features. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. Neither was I, Jia admitted. What's so important that we need to meet in secret? Minho motioned her closer. After what happened during the evacuation, I started researching Niren-human relations. The official records don't tell the whole story. Jia stood beside him, careful not to touch. What do you mean? Look at this. He pulled up a file on the screen. It's from the Earth Niren First Contact Archives, nearly 100 years ago. Before the contact prohibition, the screen showed images that shocked Jia. Humans and Nirens working together, living together, even embracing. There were pictures of children with subtle purple skin tones and human features. Hybrids, she whispered. This can't be real. We're taught that our species can't reproduce together. It's not only real, it's been deliberately hidden. Minho pulled up another document. This is the original medical study from that era. Nirens and humans are genetically compatible. The children were healthy and showed remarkable abilities. Jia's mind raced. But if that's true, why create the contact prohibition? Why separate our species? That's where it gets interesting. Minho accessed a protected file. I had to break several security protocols to get this. It's a transcript from the Niren High Council meeting where they voted on the contact prohibition. Jia read the text, her hands trembling. Council leader sung. The hybrid children show concerning developments. Their telepathic abilities exceed pure Niran capabilities. Their physical strength matches humans. If this continues, within 3 generations, they could become the dominant group. Council Member Park, we must protect our genetic purity. These hybrids threaten everything our society is built upon. Council Member Ba, I propose immediate separation and a full prohibition on physical contact with humans. We will create biological warnings to discourage interaction. They lied, Jia said, her voice barely audible. All this time, they lie to us. Then we need to act now, said Shuri. She gestured to the others. These are our allies. Like Dai and me, they're hybrids living in secret. One of them, a tall man with subtle purple skin undertones, stepped forward. I'm Jin. My parents defied the contact prohibition 30 years ago. There are hundreds like us across both systems, hiding our true nature. We've been waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves, added a woman with distinctly Niran eyes and an otherwise human face. With your help, that time might be now. Minho activated a small device that projected a station map. The trade agreement signing is scheduled for tomorrow. All major delegates will be present, along with media from both worlds. It's our only chance to tell everyone the truth, Daz said. But we need evidence they can't dismiss. Jia thought for a moment. The medical scans. Every delegate undergoes them when they arrive at the station. If we could access those records. Too heavily guarded, Jin shook his head. But there's another way. He looked at the assembled group. Bus. Living proof that the prohibition is based on lies. A public revelation would be dangerous, Minho warned. The authorities could claim your experiments or mutations. What we need, Jia said slowly, is to prove the relationship ban is political, not biological. An idea formed in her mind. Ambassador Hoon's private files. He's part of the Purity Committee. If he has documentation of their real motives, I can access his quarters, Day offered. As his assistant, I have the codes. The plan came together quickly. Dad would retrieve evidence from Hoon's files. Jin and the other hybrids would prepare their testimonies. Minho would ensure the media feeds couldn't be cut during the signing ceremony. And Jia would create a distraction when the time came. If we fail, Jia said softly to Minho as the others left to begin their tasks, we'll never see each other again. Minho took her hand, the familiar electricity flowing between them. This time, Jia didn't pull away. Then we won't fail, he promised. The next morning, the main conference hall was filled with dignitaries and media representatives. The trade agreement, after weeks of negotiation, was ready to be signed. Ambassador Hoon looked triumphant, believing Jia was already on a transport back to Naira. He stepped up to the podium. Today marks a new chapter in Naira and human relations. This agreement ensures our continued cooperation while maintaining the important boundaries between our species. As he prepared to sign the document, the doors at the back of the hall opened. Jia walked in, her head held high. A murmur ran through the crowd. Ambassador Jia, Hoon said, his voice tight with anger. You are not authorized to be here. I come with important information for both our peoples, Jia announced, her voice carrying across the hall. Information that has been hidden for generations. Security officers moved toward her, but stopped when Minho and several station officials blocked their path. The contact prohibition between humans and Nirans is not based on biological incompatibility, Jia continued. It is a political tool designed to prevent the natural evolution of our species together. Hoon's face darkened. This is treason. Guards, remove her immediately. Before you do, Jia said calmly, you should see this. She activated a projection screen. Documents from Hoon's private files appeared, detailing the Purity Committee's real concerns, the hybrid children's superior abilities, and the threat they pose to the existing power structure. Gasps filled the room as the evidence was displayed. But the real shock came when Jin, Dai, Shuri, and nearly 20 other hybrids entered the hall, removing the cosmetics that had hidden their mixed features. "We are the children of humans and Nyrans," Jin announced. "We have lived in hiding, denied our true heritage. But we are not mistakes or aberrations. We are the natural result of two compatible species coming together." Chaos erupted in the hall. Media representatives rushed to capture the historic moment. Some delegates looked horrified, others fascinated. Ambassador Hoon shouted for order, but his voice was lost in the commotion. Jia found herself face to face with him as security forces tried to sort out the situation. "You've destroyed everything," Hoon hissed. "Generations of careful separation, ruined by your foolish actions." "No," Jia replied firmly. "I've helped end generations of lies. Our people deserve the truth and the freedom to choose their own path." As reporters surrounded the hybrids, eager for their stories, Minho made his way to Jia's side. "What happens now?" he asked, looking out at the chaotic scene. Jia watched as humans and Nirans began talking to the hybrids, their initial shock giving way to curiosity. "Now we build something new, together." For the first time since they'd met, Jia reached out and deliberately took Minho's hand in full view of everyone. Her skin glowed purple where they touched, but this time, she didn't try to hide it. The consequences would come. The rebellion had only just begun. But in this moment, truth had finally broken free. 1 month after the revelation, Unity Station had transformed. Where once strict separation had been maintained between humans and Nyrans, now they mingled freely in the corridors and common areas. Not everyone embraced the change, but the tide had turned. Jia stood at the window of her new office, watching a transport ship dock. It carried the first official delegation of hybrid representatives, finally recognized by both governments. The events of that dramatic day had sparked intense debate across both worlds. Old laws were being questioned. New possibilities were emerging. "They're here," Minho said, entering the office. As the newly appointed Human-Nyran Relations Director, he had been working tirelessly to build bridges between the species. "Are you ready?" Jia asked. Her own position had changed too. After refusing to return to Nyra for punishment, she had been officially removed from the diplomatic corps. But the station commander had offered her a new role, Special Advisor on Interspecies Affairs. "As ready as I'll ever be." Minho smiled, the expression now familiar and dear to her. "This is only the beginning." Together, they walked to the docking bay. Jin was the first to exit the transport, looking formal and dignified in a uniform that combined elements of both human and Nyran design. Behind him came 20 other hybrids of various ages, each representing different communities that had existed in secret for decades. "Welcome to Unity Station," Jia and Minho said together. "Thank you for making this possible," Jin replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Many of us never thought we'd see this day." The formal reception was held in the main conference hall, the same room where Jia had revealed the truth a month earlier. Now it was decorated with symbols from both cultures. Station officials, human diplomats, and the few Nyran representatives who hadn't resigned in protest all gathered to meet the hybrid delegation. "Not everyone is happy," Jia observed quietly to Minho, noticing the stiff posture of several attendees who kept their distance from the hybrids. "Change takes time," Minho reminded her. 100 years of separation won't be undone in a month. Across the room, a young hybrid girl about 10 years old approached them shyly. Her skin had the faintest purple glow, and her eyes were distinctly Nyran, wide and bright. "Are you the ones who told the truth?" she asked. "My parents said we could stop hiding because of you." Jia knelt to the child's level. "What's your name?" "Min," the girl answered. "I was born on a secret colony. This is my first time on a station." "Well, Minho said warmly, "we helped tell the truth, but many brave people made this possible." "Will the bad people try to make us hide again?" Min asked, her question cutting to the heart of the uncertainty many still felt. Jia looked at the child seriously. "Some people are still afraid of change, but more and more understand that bringing our peoples together makes us stronger, not weaker." After the reception, Jia and Minho walked through the habitat ring of the station, where gardens provided fresh air and a sense of nature. They could touch freely now, without fear of being reported. Jia's skin still glowed where their hands joined, but she had come to cherish the reaction rather than fear it. "I received a message from Naira today," Jia said. "The Progressive Council members are gaining support. They're proposing to formally end the contact prohibition." "That's wonderful news," Minho replied. "Earth's governing council voted yesterday to recognize hybrid citizens. It's happening faster than we thought." They stopped at a viewpoint overlooking Earth. The blue planet seemed peaceful from this distance, hiding the complex changes taking place on its surface. "We've started something important," Jia said thoughtfully. "But I keep thinking about what comes next. Not just policy changes, but how our peoples will truly learn to live together after so long apart." "I've been thinking about that too." Minho seemed suddenly nervous. "I have an idea, but it's personal." Jia turned to face him. "Tell me. We know our species are compatible. The hybrids prove that." He took both her hands in his. "What if we showed everyone that integration can work on the most basic level? What if we built a life together?" Jia's heart raced. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "Yes." Minho's voice was steady despite his obvious nerves. "I'm asking if you would consider joining your life with mine. Creating our own new beginning." Jia thought of everything that had happened since she first stepped onto Unity Station, how her life had changed completely, how the simple touch of this human had led her to question everything she'd been taught and discover truths that were changing two worlds. "People will talk," she said. "We'll face challenges. We already have," Minho reminded her. "And we've overcome them together." Jia smiled, her skin glowing with happiness. "Then yes, let's show both our peoples what's possible when we choose connection over separation." Later that evening, they shared the news with Jin and the hybrid delegation. Celebrations erupted spontaneously, spreading throughout the station as others joined in. In a quiet moment during the festivities, Jia spotted Min watching Earth through one of the viewports. "What are you thinking about?" Jia asked, joining the young hybrid. "I'm thinking about all the children like me who can come out of hiding now," Min said, "and all the new children who will be born without having to hide who they are." Jia looked back at Minho, surrounded by well-wishers. Their future would not be easy. Old prejudices would take generations to fully disappear. But looking at Min's hopeful face, Jia knew with certainty that their forbidden touch had not just brought them together. It had opened the door to something greater than either of their species could have achieved alone. A new beginning, not just for them, but for everyone.